This is Judge Joe Brown, and we're listening to We All Be News. News-free Dixie for the 21st century.
All right, I think everybody's here. It's good. Would you come on up a little closer for us?
You're a good speaker. Did anyone ever tell you that?
Have you had some barbecue since you've been in Memphis?
No, I saw.
Oh, okay.
Probably not the best.
Oh, okay. You hadn't been to A&R then, right? First of all, we want to acknowledge our public forum speaker, Attorney Anderson Francois. Are you here? Where are you? Where? Addison, good. Come on, give him a hand. Thank you. He's going to be our speaker at a public forum, and attorney tomorrow, and Attorney Jennifer Taylor with the Equal Justice Initiative. Where is Jennifer? Okay. But she is here. All right. So it would be appropriate for us to say another prayer on the grounds where we are. So if we could, let's just go to God in prayer. God, how awesome you are, how thankful we are that this moment is being reconciled in history, and that we, your people, are witnesses. We stand here as keepers of a legacy that we must speak boldly of as we go forward in this future. Thank you for our city. Thank you for our mayor and the leaders. Thank you for the NAACP, the tenacity of Phyllis, and all of the hands that have cooperated to make this project come to pass. In the name of Christ we pray, with respect to the faith of all. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Mayor, if you will take that in right there, please recognize There it is, as it reads, on May 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 1866, mobs of white men led by law enforcement attacked black people in the areas near South St. Also known as Calhoun and G. Patterson. By the end of the attack, mobs had killed an estimated 46 black people, raped several black women, and committed numerous robberies, assaults, and arson. The Congressional Investigative Committee reported that 4 churches, 12 schools, and 91 other dwellings were burned. Although no one was ever prosecuted for this massacre, it became a rallying cry in the battle over the nation's reconstruction following the Civil War. Ultimately, the outrage that followed the massacre helped to ensure the adoption of the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution, sponsored by the Memphis NAACP and the National Park Service. Here we are, the first day. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our service today. Feel free to take pictures of yourselves and the marker throughout this time. And please, as we continue to mark history together. Thank you for being here.
Excellent.
Great day. Quarterback.
Good afternoon, boys and girls, scholars and laymen. This is Brother Ron Hurd. We All Be News Special Report. Today, I'm standing at the intersection of 2nd Street and G.E. Patterson in front of the sign, which is dedicated to the memory of the victims of the Memphis Massacre of 1866. Today's date is May the 1st, 2016. It marks the 150th anniversary of the Memphis Massacre. This is a very important milestone in American history in the African-American narrative. And what exactly happened during the Memphis Massacre? How did it start? Well, it was like, after the Civil War, just the year after the Civil War, right? You got black Union soldiers, or black American soldiers now, stationed in the South during a time period known as Reconstruction. This is a time when black folks who were emancipated were trying to enjoy some of their freedoms, but they had to have protection in the South, which laid in ruins after the Civil War, or the War of Northern Aggression, according to some people. So, back on May 1st, 1866, there was a lot of tension in the city. You had the black Union soldiers clashing with the law enforcement at the time, which composed mostly of Irish immigrant police officers. The Irish police officers did not get along with the black soldiers. They probably thought they were very uppity and very demonstrative, like they were very proud, too proud for their own good. Because you got to remember, Irish immigrants at this time, I guess they were like considered the white niggers. They were like the low white folks on the totem pole. They just, a lot of them came over during the potato famine in the 1840s and after the Civil War. You got to remember they had the draft riots, the race riots up in New York at the start of the Civil War, which was led by Irish immigrants. So it was like a lot of clashing between the Irish and the black communities back in this time period. Then you add on the fact that these black soldiers, who were very proud men, who actually had guns as well, they were allowed to have guns, and they was walking around very prideful, I guess, according to the white power structure. So it caused a lot of tension in the city, and the black Union soldiers were called back to their fort outside of Memphis. And so the white Irish police officers took out their aggressions on the black community. Since they couldn't take it out on the black Union soldiers, they took it out on the black community in general. They led a white mob, a white power mob, destroyed, they ravished the black part of Memphis. Many women were raped, schools, churches, homes were burned. A lot of black folks were massacred. Now on this commemorative marker, they said 46 black people were killed. But I know from dealing with a system of white supremacy, racism, there probably were way more than probably 100 black folks were killed, because a lot of black folks probably went missing and were never accounted for or never seen again. So this is something that we need to learn, that if you don't control your own narrative or story, that somebody will always tell your story for you. And not only that, they not only will tell your story for you, but they also will make you a minor, a marginalized, or even an invisible character in your story. Now, where I get that from? Ralph Ellison's Invisible Man. He talks about if you don't tell your own story, you won't be the lead, let alone the hero. You just be the marginalized person on the story. So the white power structure allowed these white cops, we talking about Black Lives Matter right now, right? We're talking about Black Lives Matter, All Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter. Well, I'm gonna tell you something, in American history, black lives never mattered unless you were making the white supremacists some type of fortune. Once again, black lives never mattered unless you were making the white supremacy system a fortune. So this is Memphis, the king of cotton. So you had these white people led by white law enforcement destroying black Memphis. And you gotta think about this. There's a lot of anger. Why is a lot of anger? Is it because the sin is in my skin? If you think about the Civil War, ask yourself this question. Who was the most skilled labor force coming out of the Civil War? Once again, who was the most skilled labor force coming out of the Civil War? It was the former enslaved African. America could not exist without Africa's forced contribution. Once again, let me repeat, America could not exist without Africa's forced contribution. And African labor, black labor built white wealth. Black labor built white wealth that the white power structure still benefits from to this day. And I always tell people this, I said behind every great white man is a black mentor that he stole from. Let me put it in these terms right here. If you look at Thomas Edison was a great businessman, but I don't think he was a great inventor because he had a lot of black folks working in his factories and in his places of business creating these products. For example, they give Thomas Edison the credit for creating the light bulb, but it was Lewis Latimer that put the filament in the light bulb to make it work and last longer. It was also Lewis Latimer that designed the first telephone for Alexander Graham Bell. And he came and he was the son of former enslaved Africans. And you think about Granville T. Woods. Granville T. Woods did work for Thomas Edison. If you think about George Gershwin, his master teacher, George Gershwin, a revered American composer and all that good stuff. You know, you got through celebrating April as Jazz Appreciation Month in this country. His master teacher was Lucky Roberts, who was a famous stride piano player, a famous Harlem stride piano player from Philadelphia, who taught George Gershwin how to write music as well as play the piano. And Lucky Roberts made his fortune. He was a millionaire. He made his fortune through real estate dealings in New York City. If you think about Hank Williams Sr., the so-called king of country music, a black man named Rufus Payne was hired to be his mentor. It was Rufus Payne, a black man from Alabama in the Montgomery area, who taught Hank Williams Sr. how to play the guitar and how to sing country music. As a matter of fact, Hank Williams Sr. gave props to Rufus Payne before he passed, and saying this was the guy who taught him how to play and sing country music because his mom hired him to do so. And Grand Ole Opry, along with Hank Williams Jr., they dedicated a memorial in the cemetery where Rufus Payne is buried in his memory. You also think about the early days of the Grand Ole Opry. It was black people like D4 Bailey that was the stars of the Grand Ole Opry. Black people. The banjo is an African instrument. Now, I'm getting all over the place. I know. I'm just trying to show you that the things you think are American really are African. Like I said, the banjo. Even if you talk about horse racing, the most successful horse jockey in Kentucky Derby history is a black man named Isaac Murphy. He has the highest winning percentage than any horse jockey in Kentucky Derby history. So we look at a black lawn jockey, you might get a different idea of what that really means when you understand that the greatest horse jockey of all time was a black man. So we get all this to say, Memphis. Why bring all this up? You know, this horrible thing happened in Memphis, right? The MEmphis MassacRE, where it was like basically state-sanctioned genocide. You know, people talk about Rosewood, they talk about Black Wall Street, but nobody ever talk about MEmphis MassacRE, which came before Rosewood, which came before Black Wall Street. This happened the year after the Civil War. Let me bring it more close to my point. Robert Church Sr., who was the first black millionaire in the South, he was shot point blank range in his saloon during the MEmphis MassacRE. He survived to testify before Congress what happened to him. Had he died in May of 1866, there might not have been a Memphis, because when Memphis had this yellow fever epidemic, it lost its city charter. It no longer existed. So Robert Church brought the city back by buying the city bonds. The first city bonds, it restored Memphis back to being Memphis. So you also look at Memphis. What is Memphis? I call Memphis the cultural commerce hub of the country. Memphis is the cultural commerce hub of the country. Why do I say that? Well, Memphis, if you think about it, it said we home of the blues, home of the barbecue. You know, people talk about, well, Kansas City got barbecue too, but the person who taught Kansas City how to barbecue originated from Memphis. You can look this up, I shit you not, because we're not trained to trust black people with knowledge, you know. So go online and you will find that it was a black man from the Memphis area that taught people how to barbecue in Kansas City. Matter of fact, jazz great Charlie Parker, who was born in Kansas City, Kansas, his father is from Memphis. So it's a saying that goes like, Charlie Parker was born in Kansas City, but he was conceived in Memphis. His father was a tap dancer, a piano player, and a Pullman porter. You know, he used to work on that Chitlin circuit. So Also,
That Louis Armstrong, you got Satchmo. Oh, yeah.
his second wife, Lil Hardin Armstrong, is from Memphis too. Lil Hardin Armstrong was the piano player for his mentor, King Oliver, in Chicago. When Lil Hardin Armstrong heard Louis Armstrong's trumpet or horn, she was very impressed because at that time, he was the second trumpet in King Oliver's band, because King Oliver was first trumpet. And she convinced Louis to leave King Oliver and become a solo act. As a matter of fact, she told King Oliver that he was leaving his band. And she also arranged the famous Hot 5 and Hot 7 recordings that really is the foundation for modern jazz. She arranged those recording sessions for Louis Armstrong. So we got to thank a woman from Memphis named Lil Hardin Armstrong, or Lil Hardin, then she became Lil Hardin Armstrong, Louis Armstrong's second wife, that really got him on the road to becoming the world's greatest jazz ambassador. Little thing, Louis Armstrong, his first wife was a prostitute named Daisy Parker. So you can probably say that Louis Armstrong was a pimp, and he also smoked weed every day. But let's get back to Memphis. And Tennessee Williams, worldwide phenomenon, playwright icon. His first play premiered in Memphis back in the 30s. You also had the first supermarket, the first modern day supermarket made its appearance in Memphis in 1916, right? This is the 100-year anniversary of the modern supermarket, which was Piggly Wiggly, which was created by Clarence Saunders. And also you had, Kim and Wilson did a Holiday Inn, Hotel Motel Holiday Inn, say what, was created in Memphis, Tennessee. Memphis also the world headquarters of Federal Express, or FedEx. You also got the fact that Richard Wright, one of the greatest authors of the 20th century, one of the greatest black writers, black geniuses of the 20th century, he spent some time up in North Memphis. He grew up a little bit in Memphis. He actually, ran from Mississippi to Memphis and stayed here for a minute before he went to Chicago. Music education was started by Jimmy Lunsford, James Melvin Lunsford, arguably the greatest swing band leader of all time. He started music education as a volunteer while he was teaching at Manassas High School, and by default became the first high school band director in the city. Took his best students and buddies from Fisk University and created probably the greatest swing band of the 30s and 40s, the Jimmy Lunsford Orchestra, which was known as he was known as the king of the Battle of the Bands. He was the most popular attraction at the Apollo Theater for 10 years, and he was the #1 band of choice for African Americans in the country. That's why he was known, or his orchestra was known as the Harlem Express. He got his start in Memphis. So you look at even the other high schools like Booker T. Washington High School that produced the likes of Johnny Ace, arguably the first rock and roll star. Johnny Ace, who was part of the Bill Streeters with B.B. King and Bobby Blue Bland and so many brothers that all are deceased now. And also Maurice White, who was the visionary and founder of Earth, Wind and Fire. He went to Booker T. Washington High School. And MEmphis, who was the first chairman of SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and also the very popular mayor and politician of Washington, D.C. to this day. He's an alum of Booker T. Washington High School as well, along with Mayor Harrington, W.W. Harrington, who was the first black mayor of Memphis, first black elected mayor of Memphis. And you got the mother of gospel music, Lucy Campbell. I said it before, I think. She taught at Booker T. Washington for decades. So I say all this to say that Memphis got a very extraordinary history. It has contributed a lot to the narrative and to the identity of America. I didn't even mention Elvis or B.B. King or even Beale Street to a certain degree. Then Beale Street was known as the Harlem of the South. It was one of black America's most famous streets, W.C. Handy, of course, the father of the blues, got his start in Memphis. So there's a lot of things to be said about the positivity that came out the negative aspects of this Memphis massacre. Now, we talk about Wilmington 1898, the Wilmington Race Riot or Massacre of 1898. We talk about Tulsa of Black Wall Street 1921 and Rosewood 23. But you also got to add to the list, once again, the Memphis Massacre. And it was a big ado about trying to change the language and try to color the language of what really happened back in May 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of 1866. And luckily, justice, I guess, from the ancestors won out over political correctness. So I guess the ancestors had the last say in not only calling this a race riot, but they actually call it for what it was. It was a massacre. It really was a state-sponsored genocide. So I say all this to say you don't need these type of things to validate that your life matters. You know, you don't need these type of things to validate that your ancestors suffer. But what we need to do is learn from these lessons of the past and pay it forward. You know, learn from this. Because everything in a system of white supremacy is warfare. All aspects of human activity in a system of white supremacy, racism, is warfare. So an important part of warfare is propaganda. You must control your stories. You must control your media. You must control your narrative. Because if you don't control your story, you don't control your media, then you get no glory. You don't control your story, it won't be told, and you get no glory. So it's very important. And all black movements in this country, all black leadership understood the value of controlling your story, of having a platform to get out your propaganda. I'm not assigning good or bad moral values to propaganda. I'm saying it's important to make some noise, to get some attention, and to also pay attention to what's going down, because a lot of things won't be explained to you, let alone overstood or understood in this time period, because a lot of distractions going on right now, boys and girls, scholars and laymen. So thank you for tuning in and listening. If you like what you heard, please spread the word, pay it forward. You know, please donate to the cause, and know that the best is yet to come. In the words of the great Duke Ellington, love you madly, keep on producing and pushing.